My name is Taebyn. I'm a pup bark bark. And here we are at FC 2020. And I want to tell you the story of how BFFT, that's Barely Furcasting featuring Taebyn, that's me, our podcast started. For any of you listeners out there, you might be interested. I thought you'd like to know how we got to where we are. And if you haven't heard our podcast, go ahead and take a listen. I'll put the link in the description below. It's a fun little podcast with lots of really bad jokes. Wow! Anyway, so, as I said, FC, Brilliant Confusion 2020, me and Barely, here's Barely, hi, we were in FC, and he just came up to me at one point and said, you know what, maybe we should this is him talking, maybe we should start a podcast, Taebyn. I said, oh, okay, how do you do that? And Barely said, I have no idea. Well, it just so happened that not too long later, COVID hit. Dun, dun, dun. And so it was very apropos that we wanted to start a podcast. And so here we are at FC, and yay, we're at FC, and we want to do a podcast, yay! And that's great. And so that's how it all began. But now going back in time just a little bit, so any of you that have listened to the podcast might know that there's several of us. We have a stack. There's me, Barely, we're the main co-hosts. Then there's Rayne Raccoon, and then there's Jotaro and TikTok these days, and Ziggy. And I'll talk about them in just a minute. It's going back in time just a little bit. I met Rayne Raccoon at Furlandia 2019. And there's Rayne. Hi, Rayne. And Rayne thought I was some fur else. But then he found out who I am, and we met. And then it turned out that later, Barely and Rayne met. They happened to live close to each other. Woo! And Barely and Rayne told Rayne about the podcast, and so Rayne came on as our associate producer. And then we had a listener named Ziggy, and Ziggy is a ferret. There he is. He's our meme weasel, actually. He was a listener. Now, back in the early days, if any of you first listened to the podcast way back when, like we've been doing this like 5 years. It's, oh my cow. But what am I trying to say? Oh yeah! So we had this listener. I got distracted because I'm a pup. And he came on. We had this segment called 5-Minute Furs for Fun. And that's where we would just have random other furs just come in, and we would just talk to them for 5 minutes, just because it was for fun. And Z came on at one point, and that was great and fun. And then he ended up joining our staff, and he is now our media coordinator and social media coordinator. Why did I look over there? I don't know, but yay, my earsies. And so there was that. Now fast forward a little bit, we've had guests on our shows, various guests like Uncle Kage, Fox and Moore, Kyle Gold, Ruckus, lots of great guests and other people. And one guest we had, which was very interesting, we found a particular fur that volunteers at a zoo. And we thought that was very interesting. And so that was Jotaro. This is Jotaro. Came on to be a guest, and we talked to him. And you can listen to the episode 2. And hear about what it's like to work in the zoo. And Jotaro worked a lot and does still work a lot with cheetahs. And in talking to him, it turns out that he really likes movies. So then Barely thought, in case you're wondering why Barely keeps like appearing and disappearing, is because he runs the camera all over the place. If you've ever seen us at a con, you know that Barely's always running around with the camera. So that's what he's doing. Yay, hi. Anyway, so Barely and Jotaro talked, and thought that it would be great to have a movie review section on the show, which we still do. And so Jotaro came on as staff, as our movie reviewer. And so we had this segment way back when that was a long-lasting segment called Furries in the News. And I did this stupid thing where I go, Furries in the News! Anyway, you can go back and listen to how stupid it was. So the Furries in the News segment was about, well, furries in the news, things that happen in the world, having to do with furries. After a while, this was actually probably say half a year to a year ago, there ended up not being really any furries in the news. So the furries in the news went away, and now it's just furry news. And so we now have TikTok. Say hi, TikTok. Hi, TikTok. As our news reporter. And so we have that on the segment. And then after a while, so that they weren't on the show at that time. They were just separate segments that were kind of edited in. And then at one point, Barely thought that, well, why don't we just we have the staff, why don't we all come on the show? And so TikTok and Chitaro ended up coming on the show. And so now there's me, Barely, Rayne, TikTok, and Chitaro. And Ziggy hangs out and does his own thing. But we love you, Ziggy. Anyway, that is the current status of BFFT. And that's the story of how it all began. And here we are. And we're currently in season 6, going strong. A season is just a year long. So we've been doing this a little more than 5 years, and we're just going. So if you haven't heard it yet, take a listen. It's good, fun stuff. We have a good time. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this history lesson. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Bark, bark, and all these animal noises. And Barely has to go take care of the camera now, apparently. So until next time, have a wonderful day. Bark, bark.
Barely Furcasting is an Injured Nerve studio production and is found on all major podcast platforms or can be heard directly at BearlyFurcasting.com. The Furcast is produced, recorded, and directed by BearlyNormal, aka Mike Began, and is edited by Barely and our associate producer Rayne Raccoon. Opening and closing theme music was created for Injured Nerves Productions for the use on the podcast by Reg Day with Damian Tanuki. If you would like to hear more music by Reg Day, you can search for Tweezer Beak on Bandcamp or Hoop Loop Tunes on SoundCloud. Other interstitial and background music through SilvermanSound.com, Gator Tots on SoundCloud.com, the YouTube Free Use Library, and Epidemic Sound. If you would like to send us a message, you can do so via email at barelyfurcasting@gmail.com or on our Telegram chat at BFFT chat, on Twitter, on our Facebook page, or on the BearlyFurcasting.com webpage. You can help support the show through donations at coffee.com/BearlyFurcasting or through Patreon at patreon.com/BearlyFurcasting. Thanks for listening.